When the towers came down, I said, we just lost more people now than we did in Vietnam. If there's 50,000 people in these towers, let alone the response. I can't even believe that I made it out, and I was only one out of 3 guys that I was with. Everyone else that I was with perished that day. If you watch the 9/11 tribute films, all the guys that we walked in with, me and one other guy were the only ones that came to make it out. Everyone we walked in with died that day. It was horrible. Joseph Lutz, police officer at New York State University, please.
Trevor Milton. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Sociology.
Chidozio Sandu, and I'm currently a junior.
Blanca Schneider, student development specialist.
I'm Lillian Park, and I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Psychology.
Rita Buttermilch, and I'm associate professor in the School of Business, and I teach accounting.
Laura Anker, and I am the director of the First Year Experience Program.
Samika Daniel, and I'm a current junior.
Sharif King, I'm a senior.
Raleigh O'Peary Buchanan, Dean of Students.
Saray Barnes, and my year in college is a junior.
Don Mahoney, I'm a junior here at SUNY Westbury. I'm a combat veteran, and I returned to school after I actually retired.
On September 11, 2001, I was teaching my accounting class at 9 a.m. It started in the Dewey Building in Academic Village, and it was supposed to be an ordinary day.
I was getting ready for school, and Carl Grossman, who teaches journalism here but also lives on the east end of Long Island with me in Sag Harbor, called me up and said, "Laura, turn on the TV immediately." He knew that I'm terrified of airplanes, and he just called up to say an airplane just hit one of the towers, thinking that it was somebody flying badly, a small airplane. Called me, I turned on the TV, saw that, called him back and said, "Carl, it's more than that."
Just got out of bed, was getting dressed for work. I was turning the TV on, and at that point, one plane had hit the tower, and they were just saying, "Oh, a little Cessna hit the plane." I thought, that's odd for New York, for a plane to just hit the building. So I was just watching it and getting dressed, and then literally as I watched, I saw the second plane come around and hit, at which point I immediately called our central office and asked for the associate director and said, "There's a problem in New York. We're going to have a problem here." And so immediately just ran and got to work, and we went into crisis mode at that point.
People didn't know what was happening till you began seeing on television what was going on. A lot of people thought that it was a joke. A lot of students, "Oh, this is a joke. This is not real. It cannot happen with the towers."
The North Tower was on fire, and I just think of my mom saying, "They'll put the fire out, we'll be fine, and we're going to the doctor anyway." I always remember the doctor's appointment I never made it to.
The first images I saw were the planes going into the World Trade Center, and just seeing the destruction and seeing the plumes of the ashes and smoke and everything coming up, and people running and crying, and just this sense of chaos.
My teacher started freaking out. Like, she started crying, and I was asking her, "What's going on? Like, is your allergies bothering you or whatever?" And she was like, "No, something just happened." But actually she had lost her husband inside, because her husband worked inside the World Trade Center. So it was kind of like a tragic moment within the class, and we all got dismissed from classes, and we left. So it was really like something that you really got to feel hands-on.
I actually saw the plane hitting the towers. All I can see was like the plane, like the building falling, and the smoke and fire and everything, and then people just running. So when I think of that day, I kind of see like people running, people in the streets covered in like dust and all the debris.
The people jumping from the building, the plane going in the building, people it being on fire, them jumping and thinking about how terrified they must have been. And all I could think of was, how could this have happened, and who could have done this to us?
tens of thousands of people just kind of aimlessly walking in Brooklyn because they weren't sure where to go. They weren't sure where they were being directed. And the train system had shut down at that point, so everybody was walking. And this particular memory that will always stick with me is basically walking shoulder to shoulder with all these folks who were there, and with my coworkers as well, because my coworkers didn't know how to get home. Tens of thousands of people, complete silence.
The horrendous loss of life. It was just something that none of us ever experienced anything like that, and the potential loss of life.
When the initial planes hit, I was in South Tower. Excuse me. I went in with the FDNY Fire Marshal Ron Buca, who actually made it up to the 78th floor. Subsequently, he didn't make it out that day. We found him months later. We did a lot of search recovery, what we thought was going to be searching, and ended up just being recovery, not a rescue. Because I lost 45 friends that day, 9/11.
Then we dealt with the students that they did lose families. That, you know, I remember a student that the father was working in a restaurant over there as a bartender, and he disappeared, and you know, so it was really sad.
My uncle, he's a fireman, and actually he went to go help clean up and so on and so forth and put fires out, and we didn't hear from him for like 3 days. And the most I could think of was, oh my gosh, I might have lost my uncle at that same time. Also, the days following, I mean, just how heartbreaking it was, because I had a couple of friends that were close to my family, and their parents were lost, and just how tragic it would be. And I just put myself in their position and thought about, if I lost both my parents, what would I do?
A lot of people lost a lot of loved ones on that day, and like just forgetting about it would just be terrible. I feel like we should just always remember what happened that day, and always remember that other people, we could have lost somebody in that building if we went there the wrong day or something.
I remember New York becoming a small town. And I remember, because I worked in New York City for many years, and when you walk in New York City, normally there's no eye contact and everybody's focused on where they're going. And that just dissipated. Everybody, it was like, it was small town America. Everybody was trying to find out how we could help one another. There was so much compassion and courage. It was inspiring.
It was only within the last 5 to 6 years I started getting acute asthma, which ended up turning into chronic asthma, microfibroplasia on my lungs. I'm on numerous inhalers, acid reflux disease from my esophagus from the dust. So yeah, I get checked at Mount Sinai every 3 months.
It would be to learn the history of the actions, of the policies, the things that the United States, the role that we played. I think that's everybody, when I think 9/11 was a horrible, tragic event, and by no means am I saying that this is something that we deserved to have, but we need to understand that we are not innocent victims, that this happened because we played a role in the other things that we have done historically, and we need, and the students need to learn this.
It's kind of cliche, but to hold every moment as if it's your last, because so many parents didn't come home, so many friends and family members were lost on that day, but as well to be tolerant and to listen to the whole story before they jump and attack people, because a lot of Muslim students, especially women, because it's so evident that they are Muslim, were attacked afterwards.
Believe in the system, that they need to begin to trust, because not everything is tragedy, and not everyone is from the countries where people that were involved in this and created this situation. Not everyone is a terrorist.
Do not judge a book by its cover, meaning do not look at someone and make assumptions of who they are and what they're about. Again, probably the whole thing, I was appalled at what had happened to begin with, but I was more appalled that when people were angry and were frustrated, that they just took it out on people who had nothing to do with it. And a lot of our Muslims are Americans, but a lot of people didn't want to hear that. They just saw them as the enemy.
I would hope that our students here, I'd hope that New Yorkers and people in general could look at everybody as one and the same. You know, one way to prevent things like this is to see yourself in others, to see yourself even in those that you may hate, even in those that may seem so different from you. They're not very different.
Make sure you remember, especially the ones you love, just to tell them that you love them at least once a day, so you never regret it.
It really should be a day of reflection, a day of prayer, a day of thanksgiving for what you've got, what we've got, a day that we can honor those that we lost, honor those that served protecting us from it happening again.
9/11 just showed me that you never know what's going to happen. In 1 minute you could just be talking to somebody, and the next minute you could be gone.
To remember is the importance of being a community.
There's a lot of turmoil going on in the world, and as a campus community, it's just a little city, and it's nice to see the students and the faculty get together as a little community or a mini city, you know, and just come together as one.